Okay. So yeah, welcome everyone. Our format tonight will be as usual for Making Visible. We'll start with the bell and we'll have a few moments to settle in. And we use this bell in the tradition of our practice with Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Buddhist monk from Vietnam. And Adriana and I practice in this tradition. You don't have to be a practitioner in this tradition to be here, but we respect this tradition as a way to hold space for the conversations that we're having. And Thich Nhat Hanh was been a monk for decades and actually was a young person and an activist in Vietnam during the war. So the tradition that Thich Nhat Hanh teaches is all about engaged mindfulness, engaged Buddhism. It's not just about meditating for our own sake. It's practicing meditation for the sake of all beings and for making change in the world. So that's one of the reasons that we practice in this tradition. So, but the bell that we'll use tonight, I'll invite it 3 times, and it'll be a chance for us to settle our bodies and our hearts and our minds in order to listen more deeply to what we'll be hearing tonight. So with that, I will invite the bell 3 times, and then I will read a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. So while we're listening, you can just relax and enjoy the sound of the bell and being here in this community together. So the quote I'd like to read tonight is from the book Love in Action by Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's in the chapter on the human family. And we'll also put this into the chat after I read it. The fate of each individual is inextricably linked to the fate of the whole human race. We must let others live if we ourselves want to live. The only alternative to coexistence is co-non-existence. A civilization in which we kill and exploit others for our own aggrandizement is sick. For us to have a healthy civilization, everyone must be born with an equal right to education, work, food, shelter, world citizenship, and the ability to circulate freely and settle on any part of the earth. Political and economic systems that deny one person these rights harm the whole human family. We must begin by becoming aware of what is happening to every member of the human family if we want to repair the damage already done. And that's why we're here together tonight, to listen and begin to repair the damage and become more aware of our interbeing. I'll turn it over to Adriana and I'll post that quote in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you, everyone. I am gonna read a quote that I like, and I think it's related with Camilo, what it's doing Camilo, and from Dolores Huerta, and then I'm gonna introduce Camilo. So, every moment is an organizing opportunity. Every person a potential activist. Every minute a chance to change the world. This is a quote by Dolores Huerta. And I have the honor to introduce tonight to you Camilo Montoya. And Camilo is a multimedia storyteller from Managua, Nicaragua, and came to Silver Spring, Maryland with his family in 2013 when he was 12 years old. He is best known in the DMV area for his original spoken word performances presented at the Strathmore and the Kennedy Center. Back home in Nicaragua, he has made a name for himself working with the Nicaraguan Freedom Coalition and the Alianza Democrática Nicaragüense, ADN. Shortly after his nomination for Best Director at the National Student Production Emmys in 2020, Camilo founded Slice for Life Productions, a video production company committed to racial justice and community building. He partners with nonprofit organizations and businesses that directly benefit the Latinx community. We are so excited to learn much more about Camilo's experience and how he has found community through activism. Camilo, thank you so much for being here tonight with us. We are so glad to have you here, and the space is for you now. Please welcome Camilo.
Oh, can you all hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone. There's a lot of people here. I honestly thought it was gonna be like a really, really small group, and it's hard for me. So I appreciate y'all being here, but it is really hard for me to talk about myself. Like after hearing that introduction, which I wrote, like I typed that introduction up, like I don't believe it. It doesn't sound like me, just because it's such a weird thing for me to just talk about the stuff that I've done, and especially in a space like this one where you have all these cool, these great people or these great activists like stop by and share their work, their experiences. It feels like I'm not really supposed to be here. So thank you all for making me feel comfortable, and for just I don't know, taking time out of your day to listen to what I have to say. I don't even know what I'm gonna say. I attempted to put together a slide presentation, and I realized early on that I'm not good at that. There's something about the slides and all that don't really work for me. I can edit in any video program. I can design all sorts of flyers and communications, but I couldn't put together a presentation worth like as good as the other ones that have been shown here, because I watched the other people that spoke. But I do have one. It's not as good again, but it I guess will guide me in my speech today and everything I'm going to say today, and then hopefully give some visuals that help y'all understand some more like the words that I'm going to say. I am going to be mindful of the interpreter, so I'm going to talk a lot slower than I usually would. I'm a very fast-paced speaker, and I trip myself up when I'm talking fast. So I'll try my best to slow down and let them do their job properly. So let me share my screen. Okay, I can't see you all, but can somebody confirm that the screen is showing, the presentation showing?
Yep.
This is showing, Camilo, thank you.
Okay, okay, great. So um, my name is the first slide. And the reason why I chose that as the first slide was because of how much I've struggled with that name. With that's I mean, I have four more, like my middle name and my mom's last name, Camilo Jose Montoya Campos, but Camilo Montoya is kind of like the way I move through the world. And I chose that name because it I haven't always been proud of saying the name out loud of being unapologetically Latino, which is I guess how I would describe myself now. It's clearly like not a U.S. name or no, a white whatever name. It's very very much Hispanic, very Latino, and it has a lot of history. It has a lot of like family history, my country's history, my people's history, and so that's why like seeing my name is weird to me because I've always struggled with it, and I'll go into it some more. But before I do that, I wanted to share that this time of the year is tough for me, not because it's tax season, because taxes did pretty good for me this year. It was just my returns I'm talking about. It's just this time from the 18th of April to like around this time is is a very symbolic time for me in my life because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in 2018 was when the uprisings began in my home in Nicaragua, against the Ortega regime, the current dictatorship that holds my country, and it 3 years ago when the uprisings began, when protests broke out, when police brutality was out there with no filter at all, no shame, no nothing, just murdering and kidnapping and harassing. It all began 3 years ago on the between the 18th and the 19th, the very important date, for Nicaraguans in general, for me especially because it represents sort of like my first awakening, I would call it. It was my first time sort of understanding finally who I was, getting a sense of what I'm supposed to do, and just started me out in the journey I'm in now, my lucha, I would say, my lucha being like my fight, my struggle, um, that has shaped me into who I am now. So my next slide is just some pictures of me, with my camera. That's it kind of symbolizes like when my the two journeys that eventually collided and made maybe who I am now. How um, you know the videos, cameras kind of was a struggle for me. It wasn't given to me. It was something I really had to work for, really had to one up myself every time to get to the point where I could hold a camera in my hands. It taught me. So, my parents couldn't get me the cameras that I needed to get started. So that's why I started working. So I started working at a Chinese restaurant in Bethesda, and back then it was amazing. It was my first job ever, and so it taught me a lot of a lot. It taught me to value my stuff. It taught me to value anything, that any material possessions that in any way help me in my journey. So and those pictures mean a lot to me because that was the camera I'm holding right there is my first camera ever that I worked so hard to get. I worked like over the summer, my going into my sophomore year, I mean, working double shifts. Like I would come in at 7 in the morning to do the breakfast shift, the morning shift, and I would leave at 11 at night to do the night shift, just so I could build and like save enough money to buy the gear that I wanted so that I could um, do my videos. So this passion of mine, this thing that has taken me really far in my life, was something that I really had to work for, and it wasn't something that, like I said before, was given to me. That's one part of my journey. Then goes my other part of the journey, which is this really funny slide, and that is going from Cam to Milo, which have been my two sort of nicknames that I've moved around my life with. Cam was that assimilated, that white passing like version of myself that I struggled with for many years. That was how I moved around my high school, BCC, which is predominantly white, predominantly wealthy, white people in my area. So the way, at least in my experience, the white man in the Bethesda area moves, a white kid in the Bethesda male in Bethesda area moves is very, just strolling by, not really caring, just like making fun of things, and very relaxed is sort of how I was taught that guys move. That's how the boys moved in our area, in our school. So I embody that completely. I cut my hair short. I wear my white Vans, my Nike socks, and just wearing a hat backwards always. It was always that's what I thought at the time that I had to do to fit in. That's how that in a way I was accepted by many for doing so, which was part of the struggle. How I was pretending to be somebody I wasn't, somebody so far from who I really am. But that person, that Cam, that boy was accepted by many. It was accepted by the white men at the school. It was accepted by the sports team at the school. I could be in the weight room with guys, with boys, in that male environment that I craved for so long because I never really had friends when I moved here. That's a picture from my sophomore year. So up until that point, I came here end of sixth grade. I had to redo sixth grade when I came here. So from sixth grade up until my sophomore year of high school, I would call it the cam phase, the phase of the era of mine where I was just trying to fit in. All I wanted was to have friends, to have a community, to be accepted, to have a place where I could be myself, you know? And that came with a lot of, you know, ups and downs. I would say I never really had any sort of how would I call it? I never had any sort of like consciousness at the time. I was so young, so focused on the superficials, focused on the looks, focused on how others perceived me, that I never really got to do any internal work and look at the stuff I had lived so far. Because up until that point, my sophomore year, I had been through a really tough part of my life where we came from Nicaragua to here, started life over completely, lost all the connections that I had, or my friends, my family, the culture that had raised me, and it started from zero. I was nobody knew me. So in a way, I got to sort of rebrand myself and figure out. I've always been very I analyze things a lot. So when I first came here, I was noticing again those patterns of how the guys moved, how the boys moved, how the guys had their friend groups, the girls had their friend groups, but girls are nicer. So the girls were being nicer to me because I was the new guys. So they would go out with me. They would take me to their houses. I would hang out with them. We would go out. I mean, that was my friend group. It was mainly girls. And what I wanted was to be accepted by the guys, because the guys, again, they're very cliquey with themselves, especially the white men, which were the majority in our school. And that's when this quote first came to me, which I think would kind of mark my beginnings into the cam era, which I'll move out of soon. But I remember in seventh grade, a girl, a Venezuelan girl, a wealthy girl. So it's a very different situation, that she came here and I came in here. She was like, she was being nice to me. She was being my friend, but she was telling me, Camilo, you're too white to be Latino, but you're too Latino to be white. And so that, as a seventh grader, I was a year into being in this country, really, it struck me. I had never thought about that. I never thought about what that meant. So then for me, that meant, well, I get nothing from being Latino. The other Latinos aren't really interacting with me. They're not really giving me a place to call home. So, and they're the minority. You know, I could tell at the time as a seventh grader that there's less of us, or at least it seems like there's less of us, and we're all kind of grouped together. So I was like, well, I don't want to be with this team. I'm gonna be with that team, the winning team. So that's what that quote, that means a lot to me, kind of symbolized for me, that if I wanted to fit in, if I wanted a place to be in, I had to make a clear decision to be white, to tap into the white side that I can benefit from, because I am white passing. My skin is white. Like when it's really hot, my skin gets pink. Like it's not it's something that if I really tried to, and I did for many years, I could look white. So that's what you see on the left here. That was Cam. And going back to 3 years ago, again, my sophomore year still, when the 19th of April happened. And that's what I mean by my first awakening. I was Cam up until the 19th of April of 2018, when all of a sudden I was forced out of that. I was slapped out of that character that I was playing for many years in front of all these people, because all of a sudden I now had to I now saw pain, I saw suffering, I saw killings in my home. I saw blood being spilled in the streets that I walked when I was a kid. I saw my kindergarten in Managua that I went to, that my cousins went to, that my parents really cared about, burnt, and because there were protesters hiding in the campus. So this childhood, place that holds a lot of memories for me was destroyed, literally. So that kind of pushed me out of that character in literally a day. So by the 20th, by now, by the 21st, I became Milo. Not yet exactly, but I was forced out of it, because then I can't I sort of get like a new set of eyes at that point. I'm seeing on my phone on Facebook, on Instagram, on all over social media, on the news, all these terrible things that are going on back home for me, yet the world around me is going on like nothing is happening. My teachers didn't really care. My friends, my close friends that I trusted, that I cared a lot about, did not care at all about it. And I wondered at the time, I was like, why don't they care? Like, why don't they make an effort to ask me about what's going on, to look at the news and then catch up with me, like, hey, I saw, this happen. Like, does that mean anything to you? What does that mean to you? And it's like, well, yeah, of course. Like, everything that's going on has some sort of emotional attachment to me. And and so that's when I entered again this really tough part for me, where I I couldn't, it wasn't ditching the life I had up until that point and the friends I had up until that point. I was just dragged out of it. I was overtaken by this great pain that was going on around me, and I focused on what was happening in Nicaragua, and that became my struggle, that became my lucha, my fight, that became what shaped me to who I am now. And I'll go into the next slide. Again, and these are some of the visuals, some of the nicer visuals that I could find, that weren't too, I guess, triggering for people, not bloody enough. But for me, it was every day. It was this, like, how could you expect? I look at it now. I'm 19 now. I look at it now as a looking back at this 16, 17-year-old that was at the time. I was like, how is it that all these adults around me, all these teachers around me, all the staff around me saw a kid, saw a 16, 17-year-old in so much pain and so much distress, and didn't reach out to me, didn't make an effort to say, hey, I know we have this big assignment, but don't worry about it. It's just a freaking grade. It's just chemistry class. Like, who cares? Like, you have a lot going on. Focus on that. And nobody did for me. Nobody did. The only ones that did were I had, at the time, I had one Black teacher and I had one Latina teacher who is my mentor, Miss Pagan, who's not here today, sadly. But those were the only two people in the entire school who were connected with me, who made an effort to ask me what was going on, to learn, not only ask but learn, because then it became a thing where we could actually discuss what was going on, because they had educated themselves on what happened, and they could relate their personal struggles. Miss Pagan is Puerto Rican, and Miss, I forget her name, that's terrible, but she's African American, so then it became an exchange for us, and that's when I first found that space of quote unquote oppressed people, of people who have struggled, of people who have a big, generational and just structural struggle to deal with, to carry every day. That exchange became familiar to me at that point, of I can have a lot going on and I can relate to others because they have a lot going on that they have to deal with in their communities. And so it awakened me, like I said before. It forced me out of Cam to Milo, because Milo is for me represents that those new sets of eyes that I've been seeing the world with, that keep changing. They're not the same as they were 3 years ago, but it was definitely a new way of looking at the world for me. And that leads me to the next part, which is how that, like I said before, that journey of the videos that I was making, filming sports, filming events, working for my school's TV show, BCC TV, how while I was growing in that, suddenly that sudden, change that I had from Cam to Milo intersected really, really well, because here I am now. I have no friends. I ditched all my friends. I couldn't go to class. I literally could not go to class. I couldn't sit in class still, knowing that all this stuff was going on back home. So then all of a sudden I now have a lot of free time, and I don't want to see anybody, because I have a lot of hate in my heart also for all the kids around me, all the staff members around me, that I now fully commit myself. And since then it's been that way, where I fully commit myself to my community, because I suddenly found one. I suddenly found Nicaraguans here in the US, here in the DC area, that were feeling the same way I felt. A lot of them were older generation, so I was in the younger side of those groups, but suddenly I have a voice. Suddenly I have a skill that can help me serve my community. So, and I'll break down each one of the images that I attached on here, but suddenly I can now help. But besides just crying about it in my room and writing about it and complaining to people about it, I actually can take action. I actually can make a difference. And that leads me to the first video I want to show you all, which was the video I literally made, I think, on the 20th, I think, of April of 3 years ago, which was just, like, all this is going on, nobody cares, the media's not covering. I want to make a video and I got to put it out. So I put this video, which I'll show you on a second, on YouTube, and within like 24 hours, it got, on Facebook, because that's how most of the information got spread with Nicaraguans. Put it on Facebook, within 24 hours, it gets like 20,000 views, which is not a lot in the media world, but for 24 hours, for just a kid that's sharing a video that he made to impact that many people, all of which were in Nicaragua, who were sharing it back and forth, it meant a lot for me. It showed me that I do have a voice, that I can make a difference in my community, and that I can, I don't have to just sit down and watch it all go down. I can actually inform people. I can inform myself. I can share my feelings about it and really capture that. So I want to show you all this video. It's about 1 minute. Let me just switch my screen. Okay, well, that's a problem there. One more time, can somebody confirm that you can see the video that I'm going to start playing?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, great. Am I good so far with everything, with time and all that?
Perfect. Thank you, Camilo.
So this video is 2 minutes. It's again a quick edit that I put together and then just put out with no intention, and then it got a lot of traction on Facebook and a lot of comments, a lot of people who felt heard for the first time. So here's that video. But wait, I don't know if I'm sharing my audio. Share sound, great.
¿Qué es lo que está sucediendo en Nicaragua? Es la primera ola de protestas fuertes.
Protests in Nicaragua have left at least 10 people dead.
El ejército se desplegó hoy en numerosos lugares para intentar contener la violencia que en los últimos días ha causado ya al menos 10 muertos.
It started when pensions were cut by 5% and employees' social security contributions were raised slightly. Several people have been killed and many others injured in running battles between protesters and police.
El presidente Daniel Ortega ha manifestado este sábado su rechazo a las protestas violentas que sectores de la oposición.
Long-term President Daniel Ortega has been accused of an increasingly authoritarian and undemocratic rule.
shoot. Am I back on my slides? Okay, great. So that video was not that good. Like it's really poorly edited, and because I was still learning how to edit at the time, but it was my first sort of way of taking action into anything. And that escalated into working with organizations like like we mentioned earlier, um, all the Nicaraguan groups that formed, of the local Nicaraguans, and also the diaspora in general, all the Nicaraguans living outside of Nicaragua that came together, which helped me find community for the first time. That's when I first land in a group that feels the way I do, wants to make change, and cares about the things that I care about, but also shares a similar background to me. In that sense, with Nicaraguan people. That's my friend, who I met at one of the protests, also who lives in Montgomery County in our area. On my right side, and on my left, my friend Jan. So the reason I chose these two pictures were to kind of show the two worlds that video, that having a camera, that knowing how to edit, and that voice that I talked about earlier helped me find, because then now I went from having a fake community that cared about me and took me in as Cam, to all of a sudden finding two worlds, and then those two worlds kept extending into more worlds, more communities that took me in for who I was, which was something that I feared for so long to express. All of a sudden I'm accepted by so many people. On the right side, you see my protester side, me at all these events at the Organization of American States, at the Nicaraguan embassy, all over Washington, D.C. Almost weekly, we were protesting for a year or so, for many years. And on my left, you see my other side, my BCC side, my high school side, where within that high school that where I had to hide and be somebody else, I now find other people with similar interests like me, who genuinely care about me as a person, about the things that I was afraid of made me different from others. This became sort of what gave me something to add to the conversation. The fact that I had a different background, the fact that I had a different struggle, and that's my friend Jan. And I like that picture because we both look really handsome. But my friend Jan is from Poland. So I had never met somebody from Poland up until that point, and it was funny, like how we collaborate a lot. Now we both graduated. He's in Scotland studying, but or even though he went away, and then I stayed here, like we're still connected. We're still talking to each other. I still ask about his life. He asks about my life. We work on projects together all the time, and he's just one of the many people that I not only met, but was actually able to build a connection, a relationship with, a friendship with, that has carried on for many years, and I know will continue to carry on. How much we were able to connect because of film, because of video production, because of the school's TV show, and that's something that I never thought video and production would have done for me. All I wanted was a camera. I worked so hard for that camera, and then that camera opened doors, and then another door, and then another door, and doors just keep opening for me because of that initial struggle way back when I was a freshman, where I was like, you know what, I can't afford a camera. My parents can buy me a camera. I'm gonna work for it, and I'm gonna save up, and I'm gonna sweat my ass off at this terrible, sorry, I don't know if I can curse, but this terrible restaurant that I worked at, where they were so mean to me, but it doesn't matter because that's what I got to do to get my camera, and how that, got me to where I am now. And I'll go into my next slide, art heals, because with the camera world, the video world, I was also able to experience the art world, which was a part of my of life that I was never even though I did do art as a kid, but I never really understood what art did for people, what art really does to somebody's soul. And these are some of the art pieces that I shared, that I've made over the years, that really capture that feeling of of community that developed upon me. So I go from that idiot kid y'all saw before when I was Cam to suddenly being Milo, and Milo's making this. This is what's coming out of Milo. This is my soul expressing. This is the way I view the world, and so and it helped me heal every time I made these, even though it was on a computer, it was on Photoshop, just making collages. I'm like, whenever I showed it to people and they would see it, they were like amazed by it because they didn't understand what they were seeing. And because truly it's just is me expressing myself. It's me expressing how I see the world. And on my left, that one's called self-portrait. I should name these. On my left, that's a self-portrait that really showed, that person that everybody saw at school and I walked around, what that person like represented, because it's not really just that I carry my culture, my country, because all of those are Nicaraguan imagery, symbols. It's not that I carry it in my back. It carries me. It pushes me forward. Same thing on the right side that you can see this other one. This is called forget the name. Sorry, but it's again the same thing of within this U.S. world being carried by the symbols of our countries, like the national birds of Guatemala, the Quetzalcoatl flying on the top, and the monarch, I think the monarch, butterflies also carrying her, my friend Emily, who is of Salvadorian descent, of a Salvadoran family, first generation American, sort of representing that U.S. Latino struggle, because she's born here, being sort of taken out of it by our symbols, by our countries, and then in the middle, it's kind of obvious, just representing that the immigration, the struggle of immigration, the feeling of you have to move forward, you have to get out of the situation, but you are sad to leave everything behind. It's not like you're happy to leave. So that's sort of I chose these three just because I thought it really represented like the three aspects of me, me as an immigrant, me as a US Latino, because I'm a Latino in the US, and I know a lot of US born Latinos, and me as a Nicaraguan man, as a Nicaraguan person. That's one part of my art. That's like the more loving part of my art. My other part is my spoken word, my poetry, which is sort of my angrier side. That's how I express all the anger that I have in me. And once I let it out, it's out, and it doesn't control me anymore. So that's how spoken word came into my life. So up next, let me show you all the spoken word that has really taken me far in life. Is called Seguimos Pa'lante. It was originally performed at my school's diversity night performance, and I won't show that video because it doesn't have any subtitles for you all here, but it's in Spanish and English. That's why. So I first did it, as a junior in high school. My first time doing like a serious spoken word piece in front of a lot of people, and just seeing the instant reaction from people in my school, teachers for the first time, teachers who knew me but didn't really know me like that, seeing like, oh, he's holding all of that in. And it was my first time letting it out in front of people, being vulnerable in front of people, and again, being unapologetic. I wasn't afraid to share that's how I felt. I wasn't afraid to share the many things that I felt, that I carried, and that is not just me, because everything and you'll see in the spoken word that everything that I talk about, that I am, me, Camilo, is not just me, it's all of us, all Latinos. We carry that, and that's something that is important to be talked about, to be noticed, to be expressed, so that anger doesn't hold us down the way it held me down for many years and holds me down at times now. I'm not perfect, of course. So let me share my screen again. Let me go to the spoken word. So this one, this spoken word is a little longer. Let me skip the beginning. This is my third time performing it at this point. From that first performance at my high school, I then was able to perform it at other events, as an opening act for other events. This was at the Strathmore theater in Rockville. I think it's in Rockville at the Strathmore. And it was my third time on a stage performing this. This was at the Latin dance competition, the MCPS Latin dance competition. So it was a room full of Latinos, and I've never experienced that before. An entire theater filled with Latino families, immigrant families, and how after that, the many doors that opened after I was vulnerable in front of my community, my direct, my Latino community. So the last video I'll show, just because we're running out of time, but I'll play it, is 4 minutes for you all. And stop me if it's not showing well, so I can make sure to rewind.
So a lot of people don't understand what it means to be Latino. You see, if you look at it from a geographical standpoint, Latino is anyone born in Latin America, whether they speak Spanish or not. Now, here in the US, the term Latino is used for anyone of Latin American descent, whether they speak Spanish or not. And although all of that is true, that's not all there is to it. Being Latino means being aware of everything and everyone you represent at all times. Being Latino means living with the burden of knowing that you are the sons and daughters of slaves and slave masters, knowing that your ancestors killed and raped, but we're also the ones who were killed and raped. Being Latino means coming from stolen land, soaked in indigenous blood, the same land that African slaves were forced to call home after their home was taken from them. And you may look at me and say, how do you know what it means to be Latino? And I say to you, porque yo soy Latino. Soy la alegría y el sufrimiento, los caminos y las autopistas, las casas y los edificios. Soy los campesinos y los empresarios, los músicos y los poetas. Soy Rubén Darío, soy Eduardo Galeano, Neruda, Benedetti. Soy Facundo Cabral, soy Víctor Jara con su guitarra. Soy todas las mujeres que han dado la vida por nuestro continente. Soy Frida Kahlo, Violeta Parra, Mercedes Sosa, Arlen Siu, Rigoberta Menchú. Soy la abuela en Plaza de Mayo, son los niños en Venezuela muriéndose de hambre, los miles de chilenos que perdieron la vida luchando por su libertad, los 43 estudiantes que faltan en Ayotzinapa, los más de 500 muertos en Nicaragua, of the 2,975 boricuas that were left to die unnamed, unclaimed, and unidentified in Puerto Rico. Son los miles de inmigrantes centroamericanos risking their lives every day to enter the same country that 40 years ago was funding the wars that divided our nations. And these were a different type of wars. These were the wars where the enemy dressed up as an ally to make us kill each other.
A revolution, a democracy in which the people of Nicaragua choose their own government.
Soy Álvaro Conrado en Nicaragua porque a mí también me cuesta respirar. Me cuesta respirar en un mundo tan injusto, con gente tan indiferente. Un mundo donde muchos tienen que morir por un derecho que otros reciben al nacer. A world where many have to die for others to live. Un mundo where the rich get richer and the poor get death. A world where looking for a better life is considered a crime only if you're brown. A wars put up by borders. Borders put up by oppressors to keep us, nosotros, from helping each other. And it breaks my corazón to see this, because why should someone have to risk dying in the quest to find a better life? And that is why I get up every day. That is why I work so hard, because it ain't about me. It's about you. It's about them. It's about all of us. It's about helping the ones coming after us and honoring the ones who came before us, because that is what it means to be Latino. To be Latino means to love, to fight, to suffer, and to keep moving forward, porque pase lo que pase, seguimos pa'lante. Muchas gracias.
Awesome. All right. So that was a lot of pain presented into a beautiful art form. which is sort of how I move around now. It's like I don't let the pain hold me down. I use the pain as fuel, as as fuels that pushes me forward, that pushes me to help my community. So even though oftentimes, again, this past couple of days I've been very crippled by my pain, I've been because it just sort of hits me really hard. Even though I've been crippled by this pain lately, and oftentimes it happens that way, for the majority of the year of my life, it really is about, it is the fuel that keeps me going, the fire that keeps me going. And I think that's how it should be for forever. That's why I think everybody, I encourage, my peers and definitely the younger generations to do art, to find their way of expressing their pain, of working through their pain, which I think it's important. But then, even though that did help me a lot, it helped me connect with a lot of people. It helped me, in a personal level, understand others, educate myself. It also, it on the, I guess, the white side, like the my white peers who would see me at my school, then suddenly classified me to better understand what it is that I was doing. I get thrown into uh, uh, what's it called? A label, I guess. The label activist is put on my forehead, and all of a sudden everything I'm doing is activism. And even though there's nothing wrong with that term, I didn't like it. I haven't really felt comfortable with it always, because I ask, how is it activism if what I'm doing is just expressing my pain? Really, if what I'm doing is is working through my pain. It really upset me. The term activist, when it was first, somebody first called me that, really upset me, because I was like, it's not activism. I don't think it's art. It's self-expression. It's a way to connect with others, to find community. And so I never liked that term. So that's why I put the question mark on the slide, activist, because it's like, I don't know. I still don't know if I consider myself that, because it genuinely comes from a place of I of putting up a flag. Here's my pain, and I want to know who else can feel that pain, who else can maybe benefit from hearing my pain, and I would love to benefit from hearing your pain, that you feel, your struggle for your community. And so that's sort of where I'm at right now. I lots of labels are thrown at me, and when things go well, when things go wrong, there's all these labels, and I always wonder. I think I don't have to share anymore, so I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh, I'm so sweaty, sorry. And then, yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at now, where I ask myself, am I performing because I want to be seen? Am I going on a stage because I want them to see Camilo, or am I going on a stage because I want to connect with others? And that's what I would say it's for, rather than being seen as a character, as, oh, Camilo the activist. What I really wanted was to to educate others, to share with others. When I would wear my shirts that you saw on the presentation, when I wore the shirts, it wasn't just, oh, look at me with my cool shirt. It was, look at the message that the shirt is holding. When I carry my flag, is not look at my flag, is look at what that flag represents. I couldn't carry my flag in my own country because it's a threat to the government. So that's why I wear my flag in my hair and in my room, and everywhere I go, I display my flag, because it's a symbol of resistance, a symbol of resilience. And that's how I sort of began also on a more academic side. I'm a very simple person. I don't read all the amount of books I should be reading. I can't really focus for that long, but then I started, but I'm an artist. So the feelings, the emotions really hit me. So I get overwhelmed with the emotions, that I really get into the more historic aspect of it. I have the Mapuche flag back here, which is the flag of the indigenous people of Chile, the Mapuche people. And I have all these books, you can't really see them, but I have all these books about all the dictatorships in Latin America and the oppressed people of the world. And again, I can't, I generally don't think I could like study it the way an academic would study it, but as an artist, I let it influence me. I let it sort of push me as well. And when I get tired, when I want to slow down, I'm reminded that, well, you know, the Mapuche flag, the fact that it's in my room right now, the fact that I know about it means that it's still alive. That feeling is still alive. That I mentioned in the spoken word is that pain, you know, of once that awakening begins as a person of color, as a Latino specifically, is like you start to sort of hate yourself. For many years, I hated myself because I was like, well, do I have the right to be helping the Latino community when my skin is white, when I'm on the more privileged side of Latinos, when I have a status, when I'm a cisgender male, when, like, even though I tell myself, oh, like I'm a victim, I have all these things to worry about, I really am also so blessed. I'm so lucky to not be dealing with the certain stuff that other people within my community have to worry about. And so, you know, it's still, that's kind of what really messed me up preparing this presentation, because I was like, well, I'm still going. Like, it's not like I'm at a point where I can, you know, say, oh, I've done this and I helped these people. Like, it's still going. And I, you know, I'm down. Like, some of my friends are here and they know, like, I really get crippled by the pain often. I don't know what to say. I don't know what message to put out, because, you know, I can write an angry spoken word to help me, but who is it going to help? So I doubt myself often, and I'm ashamed. Again, like I said before this when I started this event, like, I don't like talking about myself. I don't like sharing like what my plan is, because what if my plan fails, and I can have all these dreams, all these achievements that I want to achieve along the way, but you know, I'm human. I'm a person. Like even though I carry all this weight and I represent all these people, it's oftentimes I'm like, I just want to represent myself. I just want to like do nothing. Like all Camilo really likes to do is just being in nature, just camping. I like walking in the walking on the trail. That's what I could do my whole life and be fulfilled. But then here I am. I'm not just Camilo. I represent all these people, and because I'm so privileged, because I have a roof over my head that I don't have to worry about not being there tomorrow. I have a loving family. I have loving friends. I was able to find a community. Then I might as well, you know, suck it up sometimes and really show up for the people who don't have those privileges. When I have a status, I'm a resident in this country. So why should I rest when I know that other people, you know, I work a lot with DACA recipients or undocumented people. I know every day that they could just be walking on and be deported. Their life here, as they know it, could be over. So why should I rest? So it's sort of that again. I struggled like trying to figure out what to say, because I'm still figuring it out. I don't see myself as, I can't really teach a class about this yet. I can't really, you know, mentor somebody yet. I don't feel, because I'm still going in this journey, figuring stuff out. And I'm always looking to learn from people. So I guess as we're entering 8 o'clock and we're entering the Q&A part of this, like again, if any questions you all may have that you want to ask, like I'm honestly saying, like, maybe I'm not the person who has the answer to that, but I can share what I think is the answer so far in my life with what I've lived so far. So.
Thank you so much, Camilo. Thank you. And thank you for being so open. And as you were telling, we are entering the 8 o'clock when we usually open the floor to question and answer. But I just want to thank you so much. Say thank you because you were so vulnerable. You were presenting your journey of belonging as a Latino and as a person in this country. And that was really, really appealing. It was appealing to me. I mean, you were like clearly describing the suffering from be detached from your country, from your culture, and become here and not finding a place to be by becoming invisible. That's why we have this Make Invisible, because as an immigrants, we become invisibles in the country, and we need to shed the light on ourselves to be able to be seen, as well as others needs to turn their faces and see us. So thank you so much about that. And another thing that was really important for me, it's how you feel, and I feel you and I see you when you struggle, when people in this country sometimes don't care about what is happening in our countries and the suffering that causes here, living here, but how we are also connected. Our heart is still there. Maybe our brain and our mind is here, but our heart is there. So it's really difficult to have those two things and find a place to be. But thank you so much for sharing that for us. And Annie, I think it's time, and everyone, to open the floor for questions. As Camilo told you, you can ask him. He will share what he feels. Maybe it's not the answer that you're expecting, but I'm sure it's gonna be a great answer, whatever he answers. So I'm so glad, and because we are not that many people, I think it's okay if you want to ask Camilo something. Maybe you can open your mic and please just.
Adriana, may I just thank Camilo so much for this beautiful sharing. It really, I enjoyed it so much because it was very accessible, and it really gave us, I think, a window into what it's like to try to belong, and really the challenges and the wisdom that you got from that challenge of how to find your place. I mean, yes, it has to do with immigration, but it's really a struggle that we all face just in life, is how do we find that place? And so beautifully shared, and especially with the art and bringing in how you found your art and your expression. And I know there were comments in the chat about how amazing the artwork was. We were all just like, wow, it's incredible. So just wanted to thank you so much. And I think if you had any worry at all, whether or not your work is helping, just this talk alone 100% helped me, and I know other people here, to get a better understanding of some things. That's what that's why we do these webinars, is because we really believe that understanding is what leads to love and what leads to compassionate action. And so we're hoping that from coming to these webinars, people understand more and will be moved to do more, just like you've been doing. So I just wanted to say that before we open the floor. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that.
So please, if you have a question for Camilo, you can unmute yourself and ask him a question, or give him a comment about his presentation, or whatever is in your heart. I think Claire.
Yeah, I would like think Magda had put something in the chat. Maybe first, maybe Magda, do you want to speak that out loud, or do you want to wait until after Claire speaks?
Doesn't matter. Claire, you can go ahead. No problem.
No, go Magda. I love what you're saying there.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Claire and Annie. I really, it was awesome. It was very beautiful. And I loved how I'm reading what I wrote actually. So I loved how you describe Latinos as victims and victimizers. So what would you tell people who automatically look at Latinos as marginalized and underprivileged people with little capital, like cultural capital and social capital?
Thank you. I appreciate that question. And yeah, it's a problem, I think, because again, within our own community, like not everyone's at the same place, and not everybody who comes here comes with the same situations, like with the same struggles to deal with, and I think people forget that where do the dictators come from? The dictators in in Latin America are Latinos, just like us. They could look just like somebody who you would see as oppressed and vulnerable. So I don't think it's and I may not be answering your question, but I think we have to look at us, and I think it's part of educating and having these conversations where we learn that it's so diverse. You can't just because you're Latino doesn't mean you struggle with the same people, with the same things everybody else struggles with. And like I was saying before, like even though I'm not the most privileged person on earth, I think I'm super privileged within my own community. And it's all about who is relative to what you're comparing it to, I guess. So if obviously if I put myself against, I don't know, a super wealthy, third generation, like rich person, then yeah, like I'm so below on the scale of privilege. But I think it's all relative to things, and people got to be aware of that. You can't just throw everybody in a box. It's not good. It's not good for us also to see ourselves as marginalized, because we're not. Like, I mean, we are, but we also have to empower each other to look beyond that, to see that we have so much history, we have so much to be proud about, to be ashamed about, to share with others. So it's so diverse. It's cool, but also not how diverse it is, how complex it is.
Thank you. My two sons went to BCC, so I'm definitely going to talk to them about you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I was just going to thank you so much. And one thing that struck me about your story is partly true of many adolescents, where you find yourself and your community at the same time. That was so beautifully shown in your slideshow, which I thought was great. But also, it seems to me that sometimes white Americans, we have such an individualistic focus that we struggle our whole lives to feel a sense of community the way that you expressed it. And I just wanted to thank you for showing in your talk how important that is.
Thank you. And I see that in my friends and people that I know a lot. Oftentimes is like here are this good like socially oriented people, and like my white friends who struggle with that community to find. And I think that in some ways, like that makes me privileged. It's like, oh, I do have a struggle, I do have like a community that I could help. And so it's also, and that goes back to the Magda's questions. It's all about how it's relative to how you look at it. It's like, I'm so thankful that I have a community that I can express to, and I can help, and I can commit my life to, that others may feel like they don't. And I do think they do. I think everybody can find their community. So that's also why I don't criticize people who really find a way to make a community, like my white friends. And this might be like not cool to say, but my white friends who like dye their hair crazy colors, like that's their way of finding community. And I love that. I make fun of them, like why is your hair pink? But I love it. And I love that that's a trait that you can share with others, and comment with, to like socialize with others about. So I definitely see what you're saying, and I agree.
Camilo, hi, it's Rachel. I have a question, actually, and a comment. One, when you were describing how you felt like you wanted, when you were struggling with the identity and how the white team was the winning team, that just like broke my heart that you had to kind of face that and work with both of those identities. And it seems like that's an art itself, just having to balance those two identities. And you seem to have really done it. I mean, you do talk about how it was a struggle, but just all the other things that you've said in this presentation just makes me feel like you have really done it so gracefully. And I guess my question is, separately, when was the first time, do you recall, that your art was the thing that was your way of expressing your struggle, and it was, you realized it was something that was healing for you? What was that medium, and when was that? Do you recall?
Yeah, I can tell you the exact moment. It was when I performed that spoken word that you all saw. Again, that's my third performance. The first time I performed it. It was actually during rehearsals for that event. So that's what's weird about that. It's such a personal piece. It's like, you know, you do it one time and you don't want to do it again. But I had to rehearse it in an empty, in this empty auditorium at school, and there was like one person. There was one, Miss Owens is her name, but one African American teacher all the way in the back, like who snuck in to see the performances. This was before anybody else saw it. She snuck in to see it, and she came up and she was like, Camilo, like I can't believe you just said that. And I was like, what do you mean? Like I can't believe that just came out of you. You don't because she's had me in class, like, you don't share that stuff. You don't like now I understand why you're upset in the corner, why you skip class. Now I understand that you're carrying all of this and you haven't said it. And then she started sharing her own story, like, because she's an older woman, so she can tell you a lot about, you know, Jim Crow like era with her family, how her family starts from the South, and she was sharing with me that part of her. So it was it was just one person, and me sharing all of this historical things that I struggle with, that I cared about, made her share her story with me, and her family struggle with me, and I connected with her for the first time, with an older woman of a different race. And then that sort of prepared me for what was happening that night, when the actual performance that we had, when I did the same act that I performed a couple of times, and everybody, like the entire auditorium was just, you know, in tears, clapping, cheering for me. I was like, whoa, like this helped them, and it helped me. It helped me express myself, and it helped them understand me and others as well. So that was the first, and that's sort of what like has pushed me still to keep doing it, and because of that initial reaction that I got from people. Thank you. I appreciate your question and your comment.
Looks like we have a question in the chat from Renata. Can you please talk about how you saw the differences between Latinos and other groups at BCC and in other spaces where you saw significant social divisions?
So BCC is rough. Thank you for asking that, Renata. What I saw at BCC was, and it was just that, and I saw it not because everybody sees it. It's so clear. It's like clearly BCC is so clearly segregated, but I was in it because for my first 2 years, I was walking, I was eating, I was hanging out with the white side. So I was on one side of the school, and suddenly, you know, I leave that space forever, because now I'm a threat to them, because now I'm the woke kid, and now I can call them racists now, because they say racist stuff, and they can't make racist jokes around me anymore, because now my hair is longer, so my curls are showing. So now it's a flag that I have, and so then that's when I started living I actually started living what it was like to be Hispanic at BCC, and I would take, because throughout my day I had AP classes, IB classes, and like on level honors classes, or the lower level ones. So I'll go from one side of the school, all white kids were in the classroom, I felt like the outsider, to then, but those were the AP classes, the advanced classes. And then I suddenly entered the on-level class, my math class, and it was all Black and Latino kids, and I was at home. We could joke around, we could share about our days, we could talk about, you know, anything. And even, and it sucks because it's like in the classes where I felt at home the most, where I felt listened to the most and had a community, were the classes that didn't really help my GPA because they were on level classes. So it really screwed my idea of my sense of education, because then it became, well, it was either community building or advancing in my education. It was either you challenge yourself academically and read harder books, do more assignments, or you feel welcomed in a classroom, which I will always value that over anything, really. Like sure, maybe I didn't push myself like I could have at school. I didn't do the assignments I should have done, but I chose the Latinos, I chose the Black kids, and that became my community. That still is my community. They're the ones who carry me. And I love the first question that you said, Renata, the difference between Latinos, how even with those Latinos, like there were still so many differences because some of them, were undocumented. Some of them were US born. Some of them had just turned citizens, and others were super, super wealthy Latinos, or there were super, super poor Latinos. And so even within that group, that label, that classification of Latinos, there's still such a division that I felt. And again, like I'm not on either extreme also. So yet again, I find myself in this in between where it's like, well, I don't really like the wealthy kids at all, actually, the wealthy Latinos at all, actually, because even when you're talking that Spanish, in that way of speaking Spanish, you hear that super proper Spanish because they come from the super rich, the elite in South America or whatever. And then you hear that true like street, that a lot of them were from the hood. So that hood Spanish that I hadn't heard in so many years. When I started hanging out with Latinos at BDC again, I heard it again. I was like, wow, like, but I'm not from the hood either. So I can't really fit into that either. So then it's this division, but I can feel it a little more. Like I can understand it more than because I've never lived in a gated neighborhood, so I don't know what that's like. But I can understand what it's like, for these other kids. So it was still there still wasn't like a community, but you could find communities within those groups, and it helped me a lot, I guess. Yep. I don't know if that answers any of your questions, Renata. You are so smart. You have a PhD, like, or are gonna have a PhD. Like, I'm not the one you should be asking that to, but.
I have a question.
Oh my God, Leon.
Hello. This is super open-ended, but why do you think art is important?
Why? Thank you. I appreciate that. Liana is my girlfriend, everybody. She is the best.
Hey.
Art. Why do I think art is important? I think art is important because in my life, it helped me heal a lot. It helped me express a lot. It helped me connect with others, and it helped me challenge myself because it was like, well, I want to put this out. I have a feeling that I want to put out to the world. I want to show it to others, but I need a way to express it. So what's the best way? So it's like, well, is it better if I put it in writing? Is it better if I say it out loud? Is it better if I sing it? Is it better if I do it with images? Like, but what's the best way to, or is it better to do a speech? Like, should I, like what's the best way of doing it? So that's why art, and I love that your question is so open-ended, because it's like there's so much art, there's so many forms of art, and there's so many ways of expressing something. So if you don't have the vocabulary, like if you're not like as as smart, and not to say that I'm dumb, but again, going back to Renata's so smart to me. Like I think of Renata, I'm like, oh, she's such a smart person. Like, and it's like, so she has a vocabulary that I don't necessarily have, because I don't read the books she's reading. I don't go to the classes she's going to, but maybe I can express the same feeling that she's expressing through a painting, or through a little poem, or through some art. So that's what I love about also the different roles that we all play for our community. So it's like, well, if I don't have to worry about, major getting a PhD in something, because I know Renata has that. She can take care of the academic side, and then I can focus more on my art, or and other stuff as well. So that's what I love about art, that it allows like another side of representation, of expression, and connecting, and helping the world that the academic world maybe couldn't reach as much. And so it's all, and also collabing with other artists as well. I'm spotlighted. Collabing with others the same way. And I have another poem that maybe I'll send out later, but this poem I did with Renata's sister, who is Adriana's daughter, Aranza, who is in my grade, who I love so much. She's like I love her like to death. Like she's a dancer, so it's like, hey, let me write a poem, I'll perform the poem, can you dance to the poem? Can you do the physical like expression of what I'm writing, what I'm saying. So collabing like that is so beautiful to me, because I can't move my body like that, but she can. She has that training. She has that beauty that I can't present myself, like. And so it's a form of collabing and sharing even further, because now it's not just a dance, it's not just a poem, it's both combined into one piece that can help connect and get all your senses involved, and engaged. So that's what but I'm also not that good of an artist. Like Liana, this, like you're better at me at most stuff. And so I feel like I'm speaking
This is
for,
false.
I feel like I'm speaking for a group of people that I don't really belong in. Because when I'm in art class also, I'm not an artist really. Like when I'm in art class and I have everybody's painting and I'm over here like, well, I don't really know how to do that. So and it's so broad, you could be in a space with artists and everybody has different skills. So I love it so much. I feel safe in that space, let's put it that way.
Well, I would just say that the same way that everyone has different skills, also everyone has their different reason for why they think art is important. So even if you don't think you're as skilled as someone else, then yes, like Rachel just said, no judgment. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. You're the best, Liana.
Thank you so much. There is another question, Mary. Mary is asking you, have you had an opportunity to speak with groups of younger people about your struggle on your art?
I was supposed to speak to this group of middle schoolers, but I never called them back. But I definitely will now that you said that. That's a sign. And no, I haven't, and I don't know how willing I am to do it, because like I said earlier, I don't feel like I'm at a stage yet where I can turn around and preach, or when I can turn around and teach. I feel like I'm still learning, I'm still moving forward, and I feel like if I don't know, I guess, sharing my story is important, is valuable, but I don't know what I would do if a 12-year-old was like, what do I do? Like, how do I get out of the situation? Like, I don't know. I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough, what's it called? I don't have enough perspective in life to share that. So I actually watch myself around like kids, especially Latino kids. I'm so careful with them because I don't want to mess them up. So I just pretend to be like put together and know everything I do. So no, I haven't yet.
I don't know if someone have a question. If no, I have a question. And first of all, I was there in your spoken words at BCC, and it was so touching. It moved me so much, and actually helped me a lot with this project of making visible. Thank you, Camilo. Since that time, I was like really like reflecting about myself, about being victim and being the oppressor, and all these layers that we have. But I want to talk to you because Camilo, it's also really is brilliant, and he was part of the BCC TV team, and that's our important part, because you were communicating to the whole school what was happening in your school, and having that opportunity to be there. How being a Latino influenced that? Were you able, for example, to share contents different than the one that BCC and environments in the United States wants you to be sharing, just the white perspective, just the white interest? We struggle so much, for example, even with this series of Latinos, of belonging, and it's really difficult for us people to see our struggles, to see our powers, to see us, or to see other minorities in media. That's really important. And you were going to talk about the misrepresentation of Latinos in media. So why don't you talk a little about that, about your work in being part of the media in school, but also you are now entering professional role in the media. So why don't you talk a little about that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be brief because I know we're running out of time. But at BCC, I helped start the school's TV show, BCC TV, and which Liana is the boss in right now. Actually, she's the executive director, so you just talk to her about that. But it was like for the first time, I was like, I understood how, because also when I started with BCC TV, it was around the time the 2016 election was going on. So the media suddenly was displaying all these terrible things, and I was like, what the fuck was going on? Like, why are they so terrible? Why are they talking about us so terribly? Like, I hated how they represented us. So and then how much also that moved people. Like, people believe what was said in the media, people believe what was shown on TV, believe what an anchor would present. So at the same time, while that was going on in the real world at BCC, at our school, it was then my responsibility to represent us properly. So we would do segments about Latinos. We would do the Hispanic Heritage Month segments. Like every week throughout the month, we would do segments about the African American community, and any like news that happened that might have been like blown out of proportion in the mainstream media. We would always make sure to really like tell how it is, and also share our story. So we would try to give a voice to other people of color who were a part of this school. And it was scary. I remember, like, because for me, like my freshman year and sophomore year, like I didn't know who Trump was up until that point. And for me, it was like, oh, like this is a hate symbol. This man hates me and wants others to hate me as well. So I didn't understand, like, so it went beyond politics for me. It was this man hates me, hates us, and doesn't want to see it, doesn't want me here. So when I didn't understand, I was so young and naive. I didn't understand, like, why would somebody support him? Why would a kid in my school, in my own school, wear a t-shirt that's a Trump t-shirt and a Trump hat? Like because it was a hate symbol for me. It was, this man hates me, he doesn't want me here. How are you wearing this next to me? So, and of course now I understand like what he symbolizes for people, for the business world, for whatever, his whole thing. But at the time, and I think it's very valuable, like sharing that, like it was just a hate symbol. It was just, he doesn't want me here, and you, not all of a sudden you don't want me here because you're wearing that, because you're supporting that. So and that's sort of what that's how I came to understand the power the media had. And then at the same time, like once 2018 came around and the whole uprising began in Nicaragua, then I understood also, oh, well, why is nobody covering what's going on? Oh, because the government owns all the TV stations in Nicaragua. So nobody's covering what's happening. And all the independent journalists are being harassed and run out of the country and kidnapped and put to jail. And so then I understood, like, on both ends, on both worlds of money, the US world with Trump and all that going on, the media here, and in Nicaragua, how nobody could cover what was actually going on. Nobody could share the real statistics of the people who were being killed and tortured and all that, because the government owned all of the communication outlets. So it really put me, like, even though, like, yeah, like there's only 2,000 students at BCC, it really made me understand, like, the position I was in. I'm like, oh, I have the power. Like, I decide what goes on the TV. I decide what they get to see. I have to be mindful of what we put out. I have to make sure I'm representing people that need to be represented. I have to represent us properly, because then I remember when my first Hispanic Heritage Month segment aired for the school, like all the Latino kids were like, what is that? Like what are you saying about us right now? Like, because it was so beautiful. It was so, and we can share that out later, as I wanted to play it, but it was so beautiful, like the honoring Latinos and making them feel like they belong in this school. They are a part of the school. It isn't just a space that has to be made for you. It's not just like a meeting for Latinos, a meeting for Black kids. It's like, we are a part of the school. We are a part of this community. Like, we shouldn't just pretend like it's just, this is my school, and the rest is yours. Like, I'm fine with taking this, little space, and you can have the whole school. It was sort of feeling like we belong, that being seen. I don't know. It's, again, I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean. I hope.
I'm going to pop in just to say thank you. That was so beautifully said. I mean, really, it all boils down to belonging, right? And how we can help each other make the space so we can all belong. That's just so beautifully said. And what a wonderful evening and so much amazing sharing. I can just tell by the chat, I'm sure you'll have a chance to read it, that everyone has been inspired and moved and really appreciating you, Camilo. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who came tonight. Really appreciate your time. I know there are billions of things that you could be going to and listening to tonight. And so appreciate everyone's time. And also appreciating our interpreters for interpreting into Spanish simultaneously. And also appreciating our captioner, Don, for his live captioning that he does every webinar. And also Rachel is on this call, who does, Rachel does a ton of our communications work, and Claire, who does our social media, who's also on this call. So thank you. And of course, Adriana, who organized this whole series. So
yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Camilo. It was beautiful. You represent us so well. I'm so proud of you, and gracias por hacerlo de esta manera tan bonita. And the space of Making Visible is there. There's gonna be the webpage. You're gonna be the recording there, and Camilo is gonna share all these extra materials that we are so eager to watch and to learn there. So thank you so much, and we will close with a bell, and then we do some announcement. Thank you. Announcement. Thank you.
Yep, so we'll finish just with a closing bell to send out the merit, which is what is just all the energy we created this evening. We can send it out to the world. So from the time that we've spent together here and all that we've learned, may it be of benefit to all beings everywhere, and may we continue to go forward on this path together and support the awakening of all beings, so that all beings everywhere can be safe and well and free, and also free from suffering and the root causes of suffering. Thank you so much. So yes, I want to share that our next series starts in May. I think it's on the 14th. It's a Wednesday. And our next series is on Asian Americans, Asian Pacific Islander American issues, and especially related to Buddhism. So our first speaker will be Chenzing Han, who wrote a book called Be the Refuge. It's about rediscovering Asian American Buddhists, I'm not sure that's the right word, but it's about remembering and hearing the voices of Asian American Buddhists. So it'll be a very interesting series, and I highly recommend especially coming to Chenzing's talk in May. So I hope to see you there. Anything else, Adriana, that you want to say?
No, thank you. I think we also will talk about in this series about all the events that are happening, the discrimination against the APA community right now. So I think they will have a really good perspective about that also. It's gonna be centered in the Buddhism, but I think we also gonna touch that part of making visible what's happening with the community.
Yes.
No, that's it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Camilo. Thank you everyone for being here. Just again, making visible is possible because all of you are here, because we are all learning together. And I hope to continue seeing you in our next series, and we will come back with the same topics next year, but that's what we have for this year. Thank you so much.
And if you can donate financially, it really can help us, because we like to be able to pay our speakers a decent stipend, and we also have to pay for some of our communication things. So please, 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 yes, and follow us. Thank you, Rachel. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Making-Visible. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.